What is needed to do is to project yourself into a fantasy with your phenotype, that is your body profile, your personality and style, as it's mirrored back to you by the evidence of your interaction socially. What kind of responses are you getting? I'm talking about the cringe factor. I'm talking about the body language. I'm talking about your comfort, your ease, and ability to communicate with a style and a personality that sells what you're doing. I'm talking about a good introspection that assesses capacity to deal with the pressures, stressors, variables that come up in a situation and keep changing. He's got to look at himself in the mirror, in the glass mirror and in the mirrors, the revolving mirrors of your interaction with the other social performers in social situation, in exact social situation. What kind of responses are you getting? How effective are you? What are the mistakes you're making? How objective, how realistically objective are you in the situation? How well do you know yourself? And he has to take that image. I'm talking about your height. I'm talking about your genetics. I'm talking about your appearance. I'm talking about your material backup. Everything you have that you bring into the world to put your show on the road. And take that and then do a total deductive reconstruction of who you are. He has to be ruthlessly honest, and he has to keep checking his interpretations, his positions on who he is and what he is, and his capacities to perform and be effective, functional. That keeps changing, and make a decision on that. Remember, there's nothing holy about that decision. Then he has to take that image, that persona that he finds out there, and in his mind's eye, he has to ask himself, and he has to be very fair, practical, and honest with the questions he asks himself, how he interrogates himself, and what he knows at his level of understanding of the real world that confronts him, that says thumbs up or thumbs down to him. That's the arena. And he takes that and project that into the situation with a woman. We're talking about women now specifically. This is some reflections on Elliot Rodger's situation to the entitlement syndrome. And he has to ask himself, given all of this, given all that I know, how would I do? How would I do in this situation, this particular woman that I have, that I'm fantasizing about? That's the ideal. Elliot's ideal in this case. Elliot Rodger, the tall blonde on the Santa Barbara campus. Then he looks around and he sees the obnoxious brute jocks, 6'2", 6'1", muscular, athletic, look a lot better than I do physically. And then he has to say, given the competition, how would I do? And he has to be very, very ruthlessly objective about what he finds out there. This determines, in other words, what I'm saying is, you call it on yourself before your environment calls it on you. This is not a failure. This is preparation, realistic, real-world preparation. And if he finds out that he's lacking, he has to ask himself, how can I be a good general with what I have to work with?
That would be my mom.
How can I be a good general with what I have to work with? He has to be very realistic and practical with everything. What can I say? What can I do to make myself more effective and more realistic? Where fantasy is, where delusions are, where illusions are, where foolish thinking is, there must reality pursue it to every one of its hiding places and flesh it out and hold it up, the naked light of day under the sun, and use it. The facts, these are the brute facts, factum brutum, that he has to deal with. This is the hand he's been dealt. You can't deal with it until you know what you're dealing with. And if you deal with it with fantasies, delusions, and entitlement thinking like Elliot Rodger, you're going to come out the short end of it. My friend, you're going to go into a world of hurt, compensated for psychotic episodes, compensated by psychotic episodes, grandeur, delusions of grandeur. He might draw the conclusion, Elliot Rodger, that he's better off at 21 years of age. He can't compete on that Santa Barbara campus. Going for a woman twice his age who will accept him, even 3 times his age. Now, I know this is a horrific, it's a nightmare to tell a young kid, 21 years old, that he has to do that. But it's a lot better than the outcome of Elliot Rodger, the collateral damage, the day of retribution. It's a lot better than the day of retribution. And he's got to understand that he has to have patience, forbearance, maturity, and a good, powerful philosophy to brace it all on. He has to be at all times realistic, practical, and objective, but fair. He can't compare himself. If he compares himself, he loses by comparison. He's a fool to compare himself. He's got to do a vigorous self-prosecution assessment of who he is, and where he stands from moment to moment. He's got to learn to be very aware, to observe. He's got to learn to expose. He has to learn, rather, to interview the woman. But he has to be very careful. He has to give her critical distance to get away. He has to respect her critical distance. He has to respect that to her by his phenotype, his temperament. This is a pigeon-breasted little man with the color, or the feel, I should say, of green all around him. He's a pigeon-breasted, pursy little man with the presence, the aura of green all around him. He has to understand that going in. He has to understand that he stands just millimeters away from the visceral cringe response from the woman. And he has to accept that as the cards he was dealt and deal with it. With the older woman, he doesn't have to. She'll benefit by parasiting the youth of young Elliot at 20. We're talking about a woman 50. She'll parasite off the youth of the young Elliot, his young Ow! That's right. Think of it from the woman's point of view, the old woman. This is a young chicken. Tindervittle, it's called. He has to advantage his youth. Now, I'm an old fart. I am 71 years old fart. I'm soft. I'm pudgy. I got a big belly. Repulsive to look at. Immediately drive the cringe response. Then he has to look outside. If this is the case, he can't play it honest. He can't go by the protocols, although he has to know the protocols to protect himself. He has to know the legal aspects and the social aspects to protect himself. The rules is what I'm talking about, the rules of the road. And he has to figure a way to adjust himself to that. But he has to also be dishonest in that adjustment. Honesty is not the best policy. So he has to learn the art of deceptiveness. He's got to learn how to be a good, creative liar. He has to be able to put up a front. Now, the advantage of the older woman, 50, is she doesn't need his money. He doesn't need his material. He has his BMW in Elliot's case. That's nice. He has his fancy Gucci glasses and fancy Nordstrom shirts. You see. And the breeding of his family is a Peter Roger. So he has a aura of moneyed entitlement, even though it's an illusion, even though he doesn't have it, even though he can't put up. He knows he can't put up, but he's got that aura built into his personality, conditioned into it. He has to know how to make that work for him, not against him. He has to realize he has to subdue that superiority, that bullshit superiority, superior gentleman bullshit. Although he has a right to feel he is a superior gentleman this is the paradox, this is the contradiction, that he is a superior gentleman of breeding compared to the obnoxious brute jock on the campus. Now, having said that, the bank won't accept that check. It won't. That shit, that attitude, that will not float in the Bronx. All the more reason why he must go to the older woman. And he comes by invitation only. He has to be humble. If he comes in with attitude, he has to come with the attitude, how may I be of service to you, ma'am? How may I be of service to you? And he has to let the old woman take the lead. He has to know how to play it safe. He comes by invitation only. He lets her set the pace. He has to make sure each move is well studied, well planned, well strategized, well thought out. He takes nothing for granted. Because remember, he always has to remember, he's only 5'6", 130 pounds. Even though he's 21, his older men, 50, 60, look much better than he. They have the height on him, they have the bearing. The only thing he has going for him is his naivete, his green youth. And some older women, and I said some, will find that appealing. And this is his only hope. Not recognizing that, he opens up himself to a world of hurt and frustration, and ultimately payback, revenge, the day of retribution against all his enemies. And looking at it from Eliot's point of view, putting ourselves in Eliot's shoes, looking at the world through Eliot's eyes, it makes sense. The day of retribution makes sense. His only power is with a firearm, because he's cornered himself. You have to think what it's like, the hot genital strivings when you are 21 on the campus. You have to, before you start shooting your mouth off and judging this kid, you have to put yourself in his place, what it's like when those hot genital strivings hit like a Marciano right hand, like a sledgehammer. And the itch can't be scratched. The itch is the id, is the Freudian id, or the hot genital strivings that are like a volcano erupting. And he's got to keep the pressure on it. But he's too young. He doesn't have the maturity, the experience, the philosophy to brace himself on. All he has is his reactions, his feelings. And in Eliot's case, he's driven by jealousy and envy and entitlement. That's a volatile combination. And then he sees action all around him. He's not lying about this. He sees the obnoxious boot jock make it look so simple and then brag about it and rub it in the kid's face. And he tries everything. He tries to talk to his father, doesn't have the time to listen to him. He's the cash cow. He doesn't have time to listen to all of Eliot's bullshit. From his father's point of view, not from Eliot's point of view, from his father's point. This is all bullshit. And you just want a kid like this, you just want to get rid of him. You give him a couple of words of encouragement, give him a book, and you want to get rid of him, man. He's a pain in the neck. Crying all the time, complaining all the time. You send him to a psychiatrist, get some psychotropic medication to calm him down. And fart the problem off. Pass the buck. And it's easy to do with a kid like Eliot because he is a pigeon-breasted, puny, weak, small man, small boy man, I should say, with a feeling of green all around him. Can't hurt like his father said, Peter Rogers said, Eliot can't hurt a flea. You don't take someone like this serious. Plus, he's not a good absorber, but he's a good rationalizer, a good justifier, a good excuse maker, who seeks out in the world hero figures to swing with, to identify with. By this I mean trying to dress like, act like, hope to pick up the vacuum of the obnoxious boot jock who's making it look easy, or movie stars, quote unquote, rock singers, all this other crap. And all that comes out of it is a bunch of disjointed quirks. And then you try to dress talisman effect. Special clothes, your Hugo Boss shirts, your Gucci glasses, and you are hoping to feel better as a result of that. That this will give you a lift to a confidence that's already severely damaged. That's a fake confidence and a fake courage, it's just bravado. And you know, he has a sense, Elliot has a sense, that's why he doesn't want to go out with all of that. He doesn't want to go out in the world and test it out, because he's got a lot to lose. Here he is, he's built himself up in fantasy to such an extent, if he puts it on the bargaining table, on the deal table, he's got a lot to lose. And he's playing a weak hand. He's playing an overblown, bloated hand with nothing to back it up. He has to look outside the box.